Hello everybody, welcome to Remit Engineering Works. So today we have this Red Horse Company angle grinder which is 4 inches of diameter and 125 mm of face angle. So here we have the 1200 watts of power consumption in this angle grinder. So today we have the problems with this top bearing of this angle grinder. It doesn't move freely and it produces the very noisy sound. So this gear is very moved backward and forward. So today we change this bearing with the new one. The bearing number is 6202, which is fan bearing. So we replace it with the new one and see how does it works and how much tools we used in this type of repair and replacements of this bearing. So let's get start this video up. So here we have used this type of bearing puller here. It's a 3 inches bearing puller we have used. We place this gear assembly in this bearing puller. Here you can see the opened up case of this angle grinder stop bearing. We have removed the cover here. We have 3 pieces of this, which is the shaft, the gear, bigger one, and in the middle part we have the bearing, which is number has 6202, which is fan bearing. So here you can see the oval in this shaft here. Here you can see the movement, the shaft is moved freely. So this creates problems in this angle grinder's movement. So it doesn't move smoothly and produce the very free gear movement sound, and it produces very annoying sound, and which is the symptom for this problem, that this bearing is jammed or freely moved and it's free and it in not proper alignment. So here, as you can see on your screen, the fitting arrangements for this bearing puller. Here we have used the pipe wrench to generate the more force on this shaft, because the handle of this bearing puller is very small, so the length is very small. So we have used this pipe wrench to produce excessive force on this bearing puller's movement shaft, so that the gear is moved in faster way. So here you can see the proper alignment of this shaft and the bearing puller, and produces the clockwise direction movement. As you can see, we didn't fit this bearing puller on the workbench because we have sometimes used this bearing puller in free environments or on the motor surfaces and with bigger motors, and we have used in fields, so we do not place it on the fixed on the workbench. So here you can see the slow movement of this gear out of the shaft, and here you can see the clockwise direction movement. This bearing puller is very necessitative part of this repair works. So as here you can see, the first gear is moved from the shaft, and here's the cover. Here is the gear assembly we have on this angle grinder stop. Here you can see the movement of the shaft, which is due to the problematic bearing. So we remove this bearing up and try to resolve this problem. Here you can see the problem, the part of the main problem here. Here we have the shaft, which is locked with the bearing. So first we remove the lock with lock pliers, and then we remove the bearing. So we have also used So here we have this type of yellow color tools, which is the lock pliers, which you use to remove the lock from the shaft. Here we have the bearing with shaft. We have to remove this bearing up from this shaft and replace it with the new one. So here we have the proper alignment with the bearing puller and the shaft, and we pull up this, push this stuff up gently, because the bearing on the shaft is very smoothly replaced, as you can see on your screen. So now the bearing is removed, and we clean it, this shaft up, and place the new bearing on this shaft. Here you can see the bearing's central point is moved upward or forward or backward, which is the main problem in this angle grinder. So this doesn't move, and this problem is due to fatigue or wear over lifespan of this angle grinder. These problems occurs after very hard uses of from 1 year to after 2 years. So this is very normal problem. So here you can see we have replaced this bearing with new one. We pull this up. Now we place the new bearing on this cap with the T-clamp here. The T-clamp is used here, which is of blue color, and here we have the plier we used. We used another bearing on this to place the original bearing on the place. So here we do the hammer work on the, we have used old bearing as a reference point for placement of the new one. So this is the lock for bearing. We place it on the place with lock pliers. Here you can see the yellow color plier is lock plier we have used. Now we place the lock on the bearing assembly here. Everything is done gently by following the rule of ABC principle, which is always be comfortable. When we work in our workshop, we use this principle and do everything comfortably. So right now we have placed the lock on this cap, and now it's time to do oiling on this and greasing on this gear assembly. First we clean this up with some cotton cloths or any type of cloth, clean cloth, because all gear grease produces sometimes problems. We clean it up and place it on this bearing assembly here, and now we place the gear, which is the top gear. Now we do everything placed as we removed. First we have used this bearing for hammering purposes. We hammer it on so that the shaft is go down sides. So everything's do gently. Now we have the half length shaft that is crossovered. Now we have used another very thick item of metal that is of 3 by 4 of inches. We have used another type of thing that is nut. We have this type of nut which is used for hammering down so that the weight is done by the metal casing. So here you can see the proper things are attached. So we doing some visual inspections, we have seen that everything's fitted properly. Now it's time to fit this on the angle grinder. So first we clean it up with cloth, and now we used some grease on this gear assembly so that it moves perfectly. Here we have used the Castrol premium grease agents. So we do not place excessive grease on this gear assembly because excessive grease produces sometimes heat. So we fill it up only the required amount of grease on this, as I know with my past experiences. We used proper limited grease on this gear assembly so that everything moves very finely when it works on the field. So here it's time to close it up. Now we put the screw on and try to start it up. Here you can see the grease is moved over. So always remember that the grease amount of grease is proper, not very much or not very less. It has the quantity that is proper in every way. So it's time to screw it up. So first we screw it half and then we place the full screwing. So everything is cleaned up with cloths because dust particles is very prone to noise. Little amount of dust is very risky for this type of high speed machines. So everything is fitted over and it's time to check and start this machine up. So we screw the last screw on this angle grinder. So this is angle grinder from Red Horse company, which is 1200 watts of power. So if you have similar problems, then you can contact my numbers anytime. We are opened 9 to 5, 24/7 on week. So here you can see we now finally tighten up the whole screws. So first we check is with hands so that it moves properly. So now we check it up the load capacity. If it doesn't move smoothly, then we check it again. So now it moves smoothly, so we have to do the test run of this. Now we check the another parts of this angle grinder we have, so we not have another problems in future. So first we remove the back screws. We have checked the carbons and other materials. that is properly functioning, so it doesn't produce problems in work fields. Here we remove the carbon brushes caps. We check the carbon brushes, the below bottom bearings, and this front gear of this angle grinder. So now it's time for final checking. Here it's the power on button here. Here we have the shaft, that here we have the bearing that we have removed. So now it's time for my work results. So let's get play. So here you can see it's a bearing that is freely moved and there's no bubbling sound here, and the movement is very fixed properly. So here you can see. So if you have any type of power tools repair, you can contact my numbers.